Hey, come here. You like pro wrestling? We got a little something for you. Two fans, 3,000 miles away. We each been watching for more than 30 years. Celebrate the art form, the action, the homoeroticism. We ain't rating matches. We ain't analyzing stories. We ain't experts. We just sit down, shut up, and mark out! Welcome, everybody, into another edition of Sit Down, Shut Up, and Mark Out, a pro wrestling podcast about pro wrestling. It's really not very hard to understand where we're coming from most of the time, motherfuckers. Anyway, I'm here, as always, with the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, the best Canadian pro wrestling podcaster in the history of Canadian pro wrestling podcasters, Joshi G. Joshi, how you doing, friendo?
Hey, I'm doing well, but I'm a bit confused. I thought this was a podcast about the Kardashians.
Well, I mean, that's only off air, actually. We have a whole separate podcast just between us that's about the Kardashians.
What about your Kim Kardashian wig?
Shut up about that.
Why aren't you wearing that right now?
Well, I didn't want to be distracting. I think, basically, okay, go ahead, tell the world that I dress up like Kim Kardashian. That's fine. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, do I have some junk in the trunk? Of course I do. Of course. Do I have a perfect ass? Yeah.
What you gonna do with all that ass? What you gonna do?
I'm going to sit on it and do this fucking pro wrestling podcast is what I'm going to do, Joshi G. Jesus Christ. All right. Jesus. Focus.
Sorry. I know. This is a wrestling podcast.
Yeah, it's a pro wrestling podcast about pro wrestling.
Yes.
Get it right. Can you learn the taglines for the show, by the way? Jesus.
Sit down, shut up, and mark out. There we go.
That was good. That was good. Okay. Joshi, what have you been up to besides making up false rumors about me?
Been watching some AEW. Been reading Fatherland. You know me, like I'm obsessed with like dystopian universes and depressing shit. So yeah.
Yeah.
What else have I been doing? I've been watching Platonic on Apple TV Plus. Have you heard of that show? It's with Seth Rogen.
No.
No, it's a funny show, and like I like Seth. I've always liked Seth. I like his little laugh,
Yeah, exactly.
So
that is his laugh. Yeah,
yeah.
You do a good job with that.
Thank you. I guess because I'm Canadian, it comes naturally. That's how we all laugh. But yeah, I just been reading, watching TV. Saw a couple of my friends. How about you? How you been? What you been up to? What you doing?
Been taking a break from reading comics lately.
Oh.
And so, hold on. I took a break from reading comics so that I could watch comics because on Disney Plus, I realized I've never seen any of the shows that they made. So, like, I never saw Loki. I watched the first season of Loki.
Nice.
And it's real fucking good. Like, I was blown away at how interesting it was, and the sacred timeline and all this shit they're talking about. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I've heard good things about it.
Highly recommend it. I'm about to start the second season. Each episode is close to an hour long, but there's only 6 of them. So
that's not too bad.
Yeah, there's only 6 of them in each season. So after this, I'm going to move over to WandaVision, and we'll just see how it goes from there.
Wow.
But yeah, that's kind of been what I've been doing in my spare time. Been hanging out with my grandma, who's not doing so great. But me and my grandma got the big love between us. We've been holding hands and telling each other cool stories about our lives together. And so I love my grandma. Big love to my grandma. And thank you to everyone who sent some well wishes about my grandma. I really appreciate you guys. Very cool. But don't get it twisted, you little sickos. You little sit-downers, because that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about is another person who died.
Oh.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, I know.
And that would be the Lord and Master of the world, of the universe, Sid Vicious. Sid Vicious passed away of cancer at the age of 63. Very young man. I have so much I could say about Sid. When I first became aware that there was wrestling besides WWF, I watched WCW. And that was at the tail end of 1989 when they had the Skyscrapers, which was Sid and Danny Spivey. They had Sting. They had the Great Muta. They had Terry Funk. They had Ric Flair. In between, Arn Anderson had just come back. It was an incredible roster for that time. And Sid immediately grabbed my attention. The guy was absolutely, he wasn't a great wrestler, but he did have a badass finisher, which was the powerbomb. And I had never seen anybody else do a powerbomb. It was terrifying. And he wasn't a great promo. And he was managed at the time by Teddy Long. Teddy Long managed the Skyscrapers. Danny Spivey never talked, and nobody gave a shit about Danny Spivey, to be honest. It was all about Sid. And he just had this sincerely terrifying look about him. When they gave him a mic, he, did the typical shouty heel promos, but man, you believed every word of it. I was just hook, line, and sinker bought in. And then I remember a short time after I started watching WCW, he joined the Four Horsemen. And it was on their Friday night show. So, like, when I was a kid, check this out. WCW had a Friday night show, a Saturday morning show, a Saturday afternoon show, and a Sunday show. So most of the wrestling I watched every weekend was actually WCW. But they announced Sid on as a horseman on the Friday night show. And I remember I guessed that it would be Sid, and I was right. And that's like one of the cool things about wrestling is when you can guess and you're right. And that's such an addictive feeling. I think it's one of the most under-discussed things about pro wrestling, but I guessed it would be Sid. I don't know why I thought it would be Sid, but I guessed, and it was. And I felt like a fucking genius. But Sid came out. Probably the coolest thing he did in the Horsemen was he wrestled Sting for the world title at Halloween Havoc that year. And Sting chased the Horsemen to the back. And when he came out, he tried to pick Sid up for a body slam, and Sid just fell on top of him and pinned him. And everybody's like, oh my God, Sid just beat Sting for the world title. It was Barry Windham dressed up as Sting. He had shaved his head and dyed his hair. He had the crew cut with the spikes and the rat tail. It was kind of their version of the Andre Hogan finish. It was pretty badass. And then the referees realized it wasn't really Sting, and they restarted the match, and Sting beat Sid in like 5 minutes. Joshi, what are your earliest memories of Sid?
Considering that I was 5 years old when I started watching professional wrestling, I was little Joshi G. Sid Vicious was in WWF at the time, and he came in and he was with Ted DiBiase, the million dollar man, and then he was Sean's bodyguard. And then I remember him eventually turning on Sean,
right?
And then he beat Sean for the world title.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was supposed to get booed, and the crowd cheered him the whole time in Madison Square Garden.
I do remember that. And then I remember this in particular because in 1997, so WrestleMania 13, Shawn Michaels was supposed to face Bret Hart for the world title, but Shawn had lost his smile.
He lost his smile.
My little baby.
I can't smile anymore. I'm the best wrestler in the world. Take my belt. I can't smile.
Poor Shawn. No, not really, but I remember that was supposed to be the match, and so it ended up being Austin versus Bret, which is one of my favorite all-time matches.
Absolutely.
And then the main event, was Taker Sid Vicious. And honestly, I just thought he was really impressive. He looked like a bodybuilder. He had the blonde curly hair, very tall, scary in some ways. Definitely scary. And then I had seen him in WCW, and I Blade Daily, you're going to have to get into this for me because I can't remember all the details, but there was a match where I think something happened to his leg and it was all messed up. And I even I remember looking at the picture and I was like, oh my God, this is so disturbing. Like a bone was like popping out or something. Anyway, fill in the details. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe so. Benoit had lost the title, or Benoit had left after beating Sid for the title.
Yeah.
And he left and they went to WWF. And then they left. And then Sid and Steiner wrestled for the held up title. And Sid tried to do like a double axe handle off the second turnbuckle, which apparently he did not want to do. And somebody like, I think Mike Graham or somebody who worked backstage told him like, no, it'll be fine. And he compound fractures his leg.
Yes.
And you can literally see his leg flopping around. I mean, it's like barely connected to his body. And it pretty much ends his career.
Yeah, that was so scary.
Pretty much ends
I felt
his career.
So bad for him.
I did too. And I remember he did some indie spots where he'd be like a referee or whatever after that. But he walked with a cane for a number of years after that.
Poor Sid.
The other Sid memory that should not go unmentioned is Sid first appeared in WWF in 1991 as the special guest referee at SummerSlam, where there was the match made in heaven and a match made in hell. And it was the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan versus Sergeant Slaughter, Mustafa, who was the Iron Sheik, and Adnan. And Sid was the referee, and nobody knew if Sid was the good guy or the bad guy.
Whose side is he on?
Whose side is he on? And they would have these clips. I remember they had clips of like Roddy Piper and Virgil and Rick Martel and Jake Roberts and all these randos saying, he's good, he's bad, he's good, he's bad.
Right.
And Sid, Warrior chases the heels to the back. Hogan pins Slaughter. And I was a huge Ultimate Warrior mark. And I realized in this moment that something had happened. Because I didn't know this at the time. The Warrior just disappeared from WWF after this match. And Sid and Hogan posed in the ring together. And Sid was a babyface, right?
Yeah.
First time ever I'd seen him as a babyface. That was one thing that Vince had figured out that was correct. He was just the wrong kind of babyface. You get to Royal Rumble 1992. Hulk Hogan, petty biatch that he is fairly eliminated by Sid. The crowd goes nuts. They're cheering their heads off. And then Hogan pulls Sid out of the ring and Ric Flair wins the world title because Hogan screwed Sid and they tried to turn Sid into the heel.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense. And they literally redubbed the commentary and they redubbed the crowd noise to turn Sid heel. And it was the reason that they didn't do Hogan and Flair at WrestleMania. They did Flair and Savage, and then they did Sid and Hogan. And Papa Shango didn't hit his cue in that match, and Sid had to kick out of the leg drop. But he also left immediately after that match. And Sid was gone for a while till he came back with the $1 Million Man a few years later. So, needless to say, Sid Vicious was a star. All you had to do was look at him, look at the cover image of this episode. That is a fucking star. And it is a tragedy that Sid is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. I could maybe understand it if he wasn't in like one of the indie Hall of Fames, like the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame or something. But he made WWE a lot of money. And way more than some of the people who are in the Hall of Fame. No shade, but Coco Beware, sorry.
Right, come on. What a joke. And Sid was a WCW world champion, a WWF world champion.
Right.
Hello. What else did the guy need to do,
Yeah. And he wrestled in the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
He beat Shawn Michaels for the title at Survivor Series. He main evented Royal Rumble against Shawn when Shawn won it back. And then he main evented WrestleMania again with The Undertaker that same year. It wasn't a good match, but that wasn't the point. And Sid was a certifiable star. I have it on very good authority. Our very own Lance Storm actually weighed in agreement with me about Sid being massively underrated and said he maybe had the best look in the history of the business. I'm not sure that he's wrong. I think that's definitely arguable. Sid was he ruled the fucking world, just like he said. So we asked you guys on Threads, do you have any Sid memories? And some people responded. Rerun 717 said, no specific memory outside him being an insane psycho beast causing chaos. But how many of us learned the moniker Sid Vicious from wrestling and not from music? Sid Vicious obviously was the bassist of the Sex Pistols in the 70s. And I was shocked to discover that there was a Sid Vicious before Psycho Sid. Like, I definitely learned who Sid Vicious was from wrestling.
Me too.
Great point. Sean Bellow says, this had to be the first documented custom special guest referee top. That's true. Sid had a muscle tank top. I have an action figure of him as the guest referee. And I'm it's a treasured item. Skewered Universe podcast said, I remember my first time ever seeing Sid was his debut as Sid Justice. The blue trunks and the blonde curly mullet stood out. It also helped that he towered above most everyone. I was just in awe of the size and power of the man. I think most people remember him as Sid Vicious or Psycho Sid, which I do as well. But I will always remember him as the towering babyface that saved Macho Man and Liz at their wedding celebration later that evening. You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, it was really a special moment. And then finally, Super Awesome Jr. said, also, Hogan cheated to eliminate him from the 92 Royal Rumble, even though Sid legally eliminated Hogan. Fuck the Hulk Hogan, which is a sentiment that I think we can all agree about.
Yes. Thank you for starting that, Iron Sheik.
Yes. But R.I.P. Sid Vicious, a fantastic wrestler, a true legend of the business. I had posted on Threads that I went to a Monday Night Raw in 1996. It happens to be the Monday Night Raw where Farouk debuted and beat the shit out of Ahmed Johnson. Shawn Michaels was your babyface world champion at that time. Nobody. And I saw The Undertaker. I saw Mankind. I saw so many legends of WWF at the time that night. And nobody got a bigger pop than Psycho Sid. Everybody went absolutely apeshit for Psycho Sid, who was supposed to be a heel, but was fist bumping everybody. Everybody loves Sid.
Rest in peace, Sid.
Rest in peace, Sid Udi, Psycho Sid, Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whatever you know him as, you can always refer to this man as a legend.
And you're in my Hall of Fame.
Yes, that's right. In the Sud Sumo Hall of Fame, Sid Vicious, inductee number 1.
Yes.
Another Hall of Fame, another wrestling Hall of Fame. That's exactly what the world needs. Joshi G.
I know.
Well,
that's why
we're gonna move from some solemn shit to some really fun shit. This past weekend, AEW All In, a lot of hype, a lot of build, and my God, did this show deliver some legendary moments in the history of pro wrestling, in my opinion.
It ruled. It blew last year's All In out of the water.
It was, it was treated like WrestleMania, really, where there was months of build to some of these matches, if not an entire year of build to the Toni Storm Mariah May match. Some highlights for me of this show, obviously the crowd, amazing. It was an amazing crowd. This is the only show that you could see 50,000 people plus paid, and some idiots online are calling it a failure or pathetic.
Oh, come on, man.
Give me a fucking break, guys.
Honestly.
Do you realize that the first All In happened because Dave Meltzer literally said nobody could draw 10,000 people to an arena show outside of WWE, and Cody, the Bucks, and Kenny took him up on it? That's how the first All In happened. Nobody would have ever imagined 50,000. Okay.
Hell no.
Much less last year where they did 70,000 plus, 80,000 in the building. So give me a fucking break, you guys. Chill out. Okay. You may prefer WWE. That's totally fine, but give AEW their due, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Stop being a baby, man. Not you. I mean.
Well, I'm a baby too, but about different things.
Just fans that react like this. Just come on, grow up.
The show kicked off with what I would consider to be an incredible London Ladders match. House of Black, Patriarchy, the Blackpool Combat Club with Pac, who looks like he might be a new member of the Blackpool Combat Club. Huh?
It does look that way.
And the Bang Bang Gang. Very, very fun match. Crazy, chaotic, batshit stuff, like you'd expect. We called this one correctly.
We did.
You have to give Pac a big win in Wembley. And when he came out, the ovation that guy got was massive. Pac got a massive ovation. When he pulled the belts down, he got a massive ovation. So cool to see Pac get a response like that. If there's a guy who has just tirelessly wrestled super high quality matches and deserved a big moment like that he will cherish for the rest of his career, it's Pac, for sure. But awesome match. Awesome match. You kind of think that's the end of the patriarchy. Maybe there'll be some tension between Kill Switch and Christian Cage, which there was.
There was. Yeah.
But I thought that was it for them for this show. I was wrong.
Too.
I was wrong.
So was I. I Blade Daily.
And quite shockingly, the next match was Toni Storm versus Mariah May, which a lot of people said, hey, this is too early for this match. And I understand coming from that point of view. They got to wrestle for a fresh crowd, okay? And I think they deserved that. Because when I watched, so here's my little magical formula, friends. What I do is I watch the whole show. I'm threading about it. Joshi G and I are private messaging about it in real time. Then I go back and I try to watch as many of the matches as I can, one at a time, just in isolation, irrespective of where they fell on the card. When I went back and watched this match again, the crowd is going apeshit for these girls. They were incredible. The match delivered massively. They told an awesome story in the ring. Joshi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so first I'll start with the ladder match. I thought it was really great, and I was just so happy for Pac. He couldn't be at All In last year because of his injury, so it was so nice to see him in that match, and him being the one to, climb up the ladder and get the belts. Just such a special moment for him and for his fans. He deserves the world, and I know things were a little bit tricky because initially he was supposed to team up with the Lucha Brothers, and sadly it looks like they're leaving. So I'm just glad that they still had him on the show, and it was in a very significant way, and that he walked away with gold. He deserves everything.
He does.
He does. He's just so amazing. And as for Mariah Toni, man, I love that match. That is one of my favorite women's matches. Overall matches, actually, of the year. There were just moments in that match that really stood out to me. Toni trying to contemplating hitting Mariah with the heel.
And she just couldn't do it.
She couldn't do it. The crowd cheering for Toni and booing their hometown girl.
Right. Nobody cheered when she won at all.
And it's just like, what a great heel. I mean, you get booed in your own freaking city.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's just, as I've said before, this has been such an amazing rivalry, and it started almost a year ago, and I feel like it never got stale. And these two are just, man, among the best in the world right now.
Absolutely.
I just hope that this will be a formula used, especially in the women's division moving forward, for their rivalries and stuff. I just imagine, I Blade Daily, Tony Khan came up with this idea last May. And when I say last May, I'm saying May 2023. It's just insane.
Right.
So yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the show for me. Absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you believe Mariah May has only been in this company for like 9 months? Like, unbelievable. I can't imagine the company without her now. I don't want to.
It's funny. I'm going to share this with you and our friends on Threads and anyone that listens to our podcast. So my father watches AEW as well. And we were talking about it All In, and I told him who won the matches and whatnot. And I had mentioned that Mariah had, won against Toni Storm. The first thing he said was, Mariah May is an excellent wrestler. My pops said this.
Yeah, she can't be denied. She
cannot be denied.
She is incredible.
Yes, when a 77-year-old man is a Mariah May fan and he's talking about her and praising her, that's a really great sign, So
absolutely.
And even my husband, initially, he was like, yeah, she's fine. And now he's a huge freaking Mariah fan. So not only props to Mariah, but also Toni Storm. You're a leader, man. And the fact that you helped elevate Mariah to this level speaks volumes of you as, as a human being. She gave a lot to Mariah. And I have so much respect.
This whole story was about building Mariah, and Toni did what brilliant people do. She built herself while she was building Mariah. And I think that was the brilliance of this story. You have Tony Khan involved. You have RJ City involved. And Tony Khan said about Toni Storm, look, she's brilliant. She's just brilliant. And how can you argue with that at this point? Like, Toni Storm is my wrestler of the year. Yeah. Still. Swerve is starting to really gain some ground in that competition, but
oh my gosh.
God damn. That was a fantastic match. Fantastic story. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here, but Mariah May has certainly earned that title. Next really notable thing, in my opinion, one of the greatest gimmick matches in the business. I'll take it over a Royal Rumble any day. The Casino Gauntlet match. Holy shinoli.
Oh, so good.
There was some incredible shit in this match. Number 1 was Orange Cassidy, and number 2 was Kazuchika Okada. Kazuchika trying to trade on the fact that at one time they were both members of Chaos. Gives a big, sappy, tearful hug to Orange Cassidy. The camera pans around to the back of Orange Cassidy to where you can see Okada's face. And he kind of goes into a blank stare like he does. And then he starts beating the shit out of Orange Cassidy. But who should the third person in this match? The third person in this match. The first guy who ran down after the match started. Nigel fucking McGuinness.
Right, he was third. Man, that early on.
Nigel McGuinness, after 10 years of retirement, ran down and had a very good showing for a guy who is 48 years old and hasn't wrestled for 10 years.
Yeah, that was such an emotional moment. And in my opinion, that was the most shocking moment of that show, because who would have thought that Nigel would wrestle?
Yeah.
At All In. And just the fact that they didn't reveal it at all. There was like no indication that he was going to wrestle at All In. Props to everyone for, not revealing any of that, because my goodness, when he came out, it was just like, what? Nigel's wrestling? And I'm a huge Nigel fan.
Me too.
I loved him in ROH. I loved him as Desmond Wolfe in TNA. Yeah. And when he had to walk away because of his condition, it was really devastating. So to see him walk down that ramp and, enter the ring and not only be able to wrestle again, but wrestle pretty well after being away from the ring for so many years, just, oh man, incredible moment.
He looked like a guy who, if given the chance to wrestle somewhat regularly, could be back in top form, at some point.
I think so too.
In the future. He's obviously not in top form now, but like, he looked great. for a guy who'd been out that long. And then he lasted for like 20 minutes. I mean,
he did.
He could have been gassed after 3 minutes, but nope. This guy, he was just riding high. This guy's last match before this was in front of like 100 people in Wheeling, West Virginia. Okay. For him to return in front of 50,000 plus in Wembley Stadium in his home country, unfucking believable. Nigel said going to SummerSlam 1992 was what made him want to be a wrestler. That was at Wembley Stadium. For him to be able to have that moment, I have chills just talking.
Me too. And you know what else stood out about that match I played daily? The Nigel Zack Sabre Jr. face-off.
Oh, my God. When Zack's music hit, the crowd went nuts again.
Oh, man, the best.
When they cleared the ring, now G1 winner Zack Sabre Jr.
Yes. I wasn't expecting him there, to be honest. So that was
me neither. I had totally kind of spaced. I was so blown away by Nigel. I had kind of forgotten that Zack could have been there. And then Zack comes out. The crowd goes ape shit. Zack's having this huge moment for himself.
Zack.
And then they get to a Nigel Zack face-off, and the crowd goes nuts.
They erupted, man.
They erupted. And I'm so... I'm proud to be an AEW fan for creating moments like that. I'm proud of those two guys. I'm proud of Nigel McGuinness for all the hard work he had to do to get back in this kind of shape. This wasn't a guy who retired just because he had hepatitis C, which he has cured. They now have the technology and the medical know-how to cure hepatitis C. But he also had a massive problem with concussions. Because of the style he wrestled, and he was able to work back from all of that. Incredible shit.
We love you, Nigel.
Love you, Nigel. Love you, Zack.
We love you, Zack.
A great face-off. That was a blast. And then we get another big countdown, and the rumors were true. Ricochet makes his AEW debut at Wembley Stadium. Again, in front of more than 50,000 people. Looked amazing.
He did. Yeah.
He looked awesome. So I forgot. I haven't seen Ricochet wrestle for
same.
4 or 5 years. And man, this dude, him and Gravity have a very standoffish relationship. Let's just put it that way. Cause this guy can do anything.
Last time I saw him wrestle was in Lucha Underground as Prince Puma.
Wow. Okay.
And
I had seen him in NXT, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And, because I was kind of behind on Lucha Underground, they had put it on Netflix. So I was a few seasons behind. And I remember, the first 2 seasons were centered around Prince Puma. And when they had announced that he was, leaving, I was so sad.
Yeah.
It was just like one of those things, no, this is the best wrestler in Lucha Underground. At the time, that's how I felt anyway. And then I feel when he was in WWE, they didn't use him, they didn't use him at his full potential, unfortunately.
Not even 1/10 of his potential.
No. So it's just, I feel him being in AEW will allow him to wrestle a style that, he hasn't been able to wrestle, that he hasn't been able to use in a really long time. Like, in WWE, even though those in charge have changed, they still water down the moves a lot.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, it's not like AEW and New Japan where you could hit as hard as you want and whatnot. So I'm just excited to see that more aggressive side of Ricochet. Oh, and of course I saw him in New Japan. He was there for a while. So besides Lucha Underground, I had last seen him in New Japan. So just seeing him in AEW and knowing that he can go full speed and full aggression makes me very freaking excited,
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most damning indictment of the Vince McMahon era, and this isn't about his personal behavior. We already know what a fucking shitbag, terrible person Vince McMahon is.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a terrible booker as well. And when you look at 2 examples, Shinsuke Nakamura and Ricochet are two people that literally were beaten down by their creative so badly, you couldn't even build them back up into serious contenders.
Oh.
Nobody could ever take them seriously. That's how incompetent their use was in WWE. Nakamura is still there. You know, they were building him up last year, I think, to try and woo Kazuchika Okada.
Yes.
And where is he now? Is he even on the shows? I have no idea. I never hear about him anymore. And Ricochet saw the writing on the wall and he fucking left. And good for him. He's jacked. Jesus Christ.
Jacked.
I remember when him and Ospreay were both skinny boys. Not anymore. This dude is jacked. My God. But he looked great in the match. Last person to come out was Christian. And then the music of Luchasaurus and his music. There had been some tension at the end of that trios match. And it looked like Luchasaurus was finally going to reemerge, turn on Christian. He teased turning on Christian before he chokeslammed Kyle O'Reilly and dumped Christian's lifeless body on top of him. Christian wins the Casino Gauntlet match in a thoroughly undeserving manner and gets a future world title shot. Will it be at Danielson? Who's to say?
I blame Daly. So, damn you, Luchasaurus, for being such a wuss. But also, we had predicted that Hangman Page was going to win. And then the minute Christian Cage came out, my husband says, oh, Christian Cage is totally winning this match. And I said, come on. And he ends up winning the freaking match.
That's a smart observation, because when somebody, history has shown, when somebody isn't supposed to be in a match and they emerge in a Royal Rumble or anything like this, they always end up being kind of the winner. Like, remember Brett did that at a Royal Rumble, and that was the one him and Luger co-won because Owen had turned on him earlier in the night and his knee was supposed to be all messed up. I
do remember that. Oh, man, but it's just one of those things, you know? It's like Christian is limping, and he gets in there, and you think, oh, Luchasaurus, he's coming out to his, like, original music. He's going to turn on Christian. Instead, he helps him win. What is he going to take, Luchasaurus? You dumbass dinosaur.
Yep. And Kyle takes another pin.
Oh, Kyle.
I think the end of the conglomeration is starting to crystallize. You can tell because they've never separated O'Reilly from Roderick Strong. Like, Roderick is so obsessed with Kyle, you know?
Yeah. And plus, Ishii is going to go back to New Japan soon, so.
He is. He is. We had MJF versus Will Ospreay.
So good.
Incredible match. Really, really, really good match. They had mentioned at the top of the show or at the top of the match that somebody had stolen MJF's Dynamite Diamond ring. I think that gimmick actually might be over now.
Might be.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are having their normal banger, incredible chemistry, incredible match. MJF, somehow a ref takes a bump. MJF pulls out the taped over brass knuckles from out of his tights, and he looks like he's about to level Ospreay when somebody in a hood with a face mask jumps up on the ring apron. I'm immediately putting together who this is. I think some people it might have taken him a minute, but this person just grabs the brass knuckles from MJF, throws them away, and punches him. MJF falls on the ground. He's like, who the fuck is this? And they do the slow mask reveal. It's Daniel Garcia, baby.
It's our boy. What a great moment. Boy. Danny G, you're back.
Yeah.
I love you, Danny. Danny boy.
The pipes were calling. And this is all the advantageous behavior that Will Ospreay needs. Will Ospreay hits the fucking Storm or the Tiger Driver 91 on MJF, and it's over.
He did it. He used the move. He did
Dropped him on his fucking head and sat on him, and it took the ref a minute to get into position, but you can't kick out of that move. So MJF took a real nasty bump, but apparently he's okay. So
that's what matters.
Excellent match. I loved the match.
Me too. Such a
fantastic
good
work from both guys. Ospreay is the biggest star of this show by a lot.
Oh my God, the crowd loved him. Cheese.
Real quick, I think we should be brief on this one. Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker had a match. People, we talked about this on the show. People look for reasons to kind of say Mercedes matches aren't as good or whatever. I saw people being really harsh on Britt. I'll say this. There were a couple spots that were just a little off. A couple, okay? I did the vacuum test in this match where I watched this match by itself. I didn't watch the match before or after. I just watched this one match. It's a really respectable match. It's a very solid match. Britt Baker, for somebody who's been out as long as she did a fine job. She looked fine in this match, and Mercedes was great. So I think people are being too harsh, as they often are with both of these people. I can see, I'm not sure what happens next for Britt Baker. Possibly a heel turn. But one way or the other, it was still a good match.
Look, I agree with you. Was it better than Mariah Tony? No.
No.
But at the same time, there are a couple of things that you need to take into consideration. First of all, Britt Baker, she was gone for a long time. She had a mini stroke. She's only wrestled, twice since coming? Oh, no, 3 times. This is her 3rd match since coming back. And to be perfectly honest, I'm going to say it. And I mean, I don't know why this is shocking to people. When it comes to Britt Baker in the ring, she's decent. She is not one of the best wrestlers.
No.
It's just the truth. We love her character. We love her mic skills. In the ring, she's fine. But she's not a Mercedes. She's not a Jamie. She's not a Sheeta. Now, I knew when they had announced this match, I said, yeah, this match is going to be fine. I didn't have high expectations where, oh my God, this is going to be match of the night. This is going to be better than Mariah Tony. No, I knew it wouldn't be. So watching it, my expectations weren't high. I just enjoyed it for what it is. And to those of you that keep saying that Mercedes is horrible, just stop it. Okay, this is really annoying.
Honestly, it just makes you look stupid. It's like saying Bryan Danielson isn't good.
I mean, just stop with this. I keep seeing this crap, and it's not true. If you feel like she's not your type of wrestler, fine. But to say she's terrible, what the hell are we talking about here? I thought Mercedes did an excellent job. She clearly carried Britt throughout the match. But to say that it was the worst women's match ever, seriously, calm down. You're overreaching here. And, yes, the crowd they've been more lively, sure. But they were tired at this point. This match was not in the right position, on the card. Right after Ospreay MJF, not a good idea. Probably should have been Jericho Hook, to be honest. So you can't put it all on the ladies either. As I said,
I don't think you can, and I think you could.
I don't think that's fair. Yeah.
The problem is that they did the 2 filler matches back to back. They did
Yeah,
Jericho and Hook, and then the tag match, which were the 2 matches with the least amount of anticipation.
Yeah,
And
they messed up there.
honestly, neither of those matches were bad either. We're not talking about them because they just weren't that significant.
Yeah.
But honestly, they weren't bad matches either. With Jericho and Hook, you had the Taz thing. With the triple threat tag, you had the reemergence of the grizzled young vets, which I thought was really cool.
That was really cool. But it's just one of those things to keep in perspective. It's like when it comes to Britt Baker, don't ever expect a 5-star match. She's decent, but she's not at that level where you should always expect her matches to be amazing. That's just not the case with her. And if that's where you were, expecting, your expectations were too high.
And I also think the truth about Britt is her most well-regarded matches are with Thunder Rosa, and those were both plunder matches that had a lot of blood and props and all this other stuff going on. They weren't like shoulder tackle, drop down, ankle locks and shit like that. I mean, they were, I'm not saying this as a negative on Britt either. Lots of people were better on the mic than they are in the ring, and Britt's one of those, and there's nothing wrong with that. She's still a star.
Exactly.
So they had a very respectable match. and that I would say was a very solid, good. You know, if I did star ratings, I'd give it a 3 or a 3.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It was a very solid match. Jack Perry and Darby Allin had a really fun match. Apparently, they got about 10 minutes shaved off of it. But long story short, Jack Perry threw Darby off of the fucking stage, like 15 feet off a stage through some tables.
Yeah.
In a body bag. And threw him in a fucking coffin, wanted to light him on fire. The Bucks came out to try and help him light him on fire. And I just knew. Of
course.
Knew. You gotta give London Sting.
Of
and it's
course.
so funny because I saw people say stuff like, oh, Sting stayed retired for 5 months or something. It's like, dude, he's still retired. This isn't a match.
He's there to save he's just there to save his son. His son.
Leave my child alone.
iBlade Daily, Sting coming out to seek and destroy, still freaking badass. Whenever he comes back for an appearance, that has to be his music.
I think so. I think it's just iconic, and he is the icon. And so,
exactly.
Sting was just fucking the business, man. It was so good.
And it's just one of those things. Whenever I see Sting, I get really nostalgic and I smile a lot because he makes me really happy.
Absolutely.
So it was just so nice to see him there. Like, Sting, I love you. I hope to meet you one day. I really
100%. 100%. And to anyone listening right now, this is going to be a longer episode because we have a pay-per-view and a Dynamite to cover. So bear with us. And
Joshi G won't shut the hell up. Okay, sorry.
No, it's not even that. There's so much to say, and we haven't even gotten to the best match of the night.
Oh my God.
Which was the next match. Yes. One of the greatest matches in the history of pay-per-view. Maybe not from a technical perspective. Maybe not either guy's most athletic or fluid performance. But the story told within this match is as good as any that's ever happened.
Oh, yeah.
It was so good. You get the fucking music. You get Final Countdown. You get Bryan Danielson walking out to the ring looking like even he doesn't know for sure if he's going to win.
Danielson!
You have Brie looking gorgeous. I haven't seen her in a long time. I haven't seen Brie in a long time, and I was like, man, she's pretty.
She is pretty.
With their beautiful children.
They're so cute!
Birdie and Buddy.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Da-da-da-da. Sorry. Sorry, I had to do that. Sorry, I played.
You gotta. Come on. Final Countdown, baby.
Yes.
But you got Birdie and Buddy. And then Swerve comes out with a fucking baller entrance.
Oh, yeah.
That was just fucking rad. Swerve looked like he's the man. Like, he is the long term of AEW, period. Okay? And this is in a company that also has Kenny Omega, Adam Cole, Jay White, Will Ospreay, Kazuchika Okada, and Swerve is your top guy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Swerve's a special man.
Very special. Very special. Even Sandong agrees.
Sandong just keeps checking on us.
Hey, he got real emotional when we were talking about Tony Storm earlier. He agreed. So they come out. They have this very, very athletic, fun match. But Swerve is constantly taunting not only Brie, but the children.
How dare he?
Swerve had no bottom in this match. He was just like, I will do whatever it takes to get in your fucking head and take this match from you. Okay?
iBlade Daily. Keep your kids, everyone in general, keep your kids away from Swerve.
Yes. Just the way you want to keep your dead father away from Christian. You want to keep your alive children and wife away from Swerve for different reasons. Entirely different reasons. But Swerve has no compunction about breaking into your home either. One of the better moments of the night, Swerve had already hit multiple house calls on Danielson, and Danielson kicks out. Danielson rallies and hits the Buzaiku knee on Swerve, who falls back into the turnbuckles and then just walks out and brushes it off like it was nothing.
Oh, that was so good.
And then he hits the house call on Danielson again. That was like, Swerve he's not just your top guy, he's a movie monster. Like, this guy has got shit in him, like Sting, or like almost like Hulk Hogan to a degree. So you can't staple this man to death, and a Buzaiku knee is not enough. And then Swerve starts kicking Danielson at some point in the match. He starts doing the Danielson kicks to Danielson. And Danielson starts no-selling him and starts standing up, and he's looking directly at his family. And he looks at them every time Swerve kicks him. He goes, I love you so much. And he kicks him again, and he says, I'm getting emotional just talking about it.
Me too. Well,
it was really one of the most chill. I got goosebumps just now talking about this moment. They told an incredible story. Eventually, Swerve even hits big pressure, which no one has ever kicked out of.
Yeah.
On Danielson, and Danielson kicks out again.
Yeah.
And you just know it's Danielson's night. You just know it. And Danielson eventually catches his, Swerve in the regal stretch / yes lock / whatever you want to call it. And Swerve has no choice but to, for the very first time in his AEW career, tap out. Massive celebration. Bree, the kids, running the ring. Yuta, Claudio, and Pac come out to celebrate with them. Everybody noticed that Claudio and Yuta were in their street clothes and Pac was still in his gear. Lance Storm did mention on Threads, I love being friends with Lance over there because he points out really smart things all the time. He said, Pac doesn't look nearly as impressive in his street clothes as he does in his gear. So if he was Pac, he would wear his gear as well. And that makes a lot of sense because every promo you see with Pac, even when he was in the rain in the street, he's in his gear. And maybe the best part of the whole thing is watching Buddy attack the confetti as it's hitting the ring mat.
He's so cute.
And Danielson's trying to get him to jump into his arms so he can hold him up high. Buddy's just not having it. He's like, no, there's all this confetti coming down. Leave me alone. And the show goes off the air. Amazing. Danielson calls it the greatest match of his entire career, the greatest moment of his entire career. And Swerve tweets likewise. I'm a Washingtonian. I'm watching a dude from Aberdeen and a dude from my actual hometown of Tacoma, Washington, wrestle in Wembley Stadium and having one of the most legendary moments of 2024 in the entire history of AEW. Incredible. What more can you say? All In was a massive success.
Well, as if I didn't love Danielson enough before. Like, now I love him, I love him even more. Like, such an emotional moment. I was crying and just...
I was teary too, and I never cry watching wrestling.
Like, the thing about Danielson is that it's not just the fact that he's one of the best wrestlers ever. And now I'm going to get emotional.
Go for it.
He's a really good person. And watching the media scrum and seeing his relationship with his daughter, it's like, oh my God, he just seems like such a great dad. And it's just, how can you not like this guy? It's just, he's just, like he came into AEW and was always so selfless, had no issues putting others over. He joined the disciplinary committee, had to make some really difficult decisions. He always talks highly about AEW and Tony Khan. And it's just like, he's just really special. And, like he's been one of my favorite wrestlers for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really grateful that like he gets to decide when he retires and it's not forced upon him like it was, in 2015 or whenever that
17.
was.
Yeah.
Was it 2017? Yeah. And it's like I'm glad he's making this decision and he's comfortable with it. And it's just that, but it's also it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow knowing that very soon he's not going to be wrestling full time anymore, and um, eventually he will retire full time, and it hurts um, because he's so fucking special. And it's just like I love Swerve. I love Swerve a lot, but for this match at All In, the only person that I was okay with beating Swerve was Danielson, and
Me
that's
too.
only and the reason being that he's just been so freaking selfless, not selfish, never selfish, never, so selfless, and never asked for a belt, never, like put Hangman over, had a
when he was brand new too. He had only been there 3 or 4 months, and he put Hangman over clean as a sheet.
Yeah, and like one of his first matches was against Kenny, and that was a time limit draw. And it's just like the fact that he's just so selfless and hasn't tried to like change things and manipulate people and do any of that. It's like, what an incredible person. I just want more people like him in professional wrestling, truthfully.
He is a legend for far more than just his abilities. He is a special person who I think has been a great influence on everybody he's ever shared a locker room with. He's pretty much universally respected. I've never heard really anyone ever say a bad thing about him. And, AEW, like when you reflect on AEW and his run in AEW, Danielson versus Okada, Danielson versus Hangman 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, all incredible matches. You have this match with Swerve. You have his match with Minoru Suzuki, with Eddie Kingston, both at in the semifinals of the C2 and at Revolution. You have tons of great stuff, okay? Bryan Danielson in 3 years has done so much for AEW. And think about this. I want everybody at home, think about this. Bryan Danielson is the 9th AEW world champion. It's not the 9th world title reign, but he is the 9th person to hold that belt. And I want you to listen to this. These are the AEW champions: Jericho, Moxley, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, CM Punk, MJF, Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland, Bryan Danielson. A murderer's row of the very best the business has to offer. And you still have Jay White, Will Ospreay, Adam Cole. You still have Kazuchika Okada. You have all these people that at some point are going to hold that title. It's becoming the most prestigious world title in the business, period. And Bryan Danielson had to hold that title before he retired. To me, it was a must.
Oh, my God,
now,
yeah.
Am I very hopeful that my boy Swerve wins it back at Wrestle Dream in Tacoma while I'm there in attendance and Danielson gets to retire in his home state? Yeah, I am. But whoever beats Bryan Danielson, Swerve was just as big a part of making this moment as Danielson was.
Of course, yeah.
Because he was the only person who could get heat for taunting the kids, for doing all the stuff. He went from being a top babyface to being their top heel for a week. And then it was over because the next night on Dynamite, or the next Dynamite, which was last night, was totally different. Now let's try to power run through Dynamite here.
Let's do that, yes.
Also, we didn't even mention All In featured the return of one Jamie fucking Hayter.
My wife.
And the debut, at least the first appearance of the Grizzled Young Vets as what appears to be tag talent full time. I am very excited about that.
Me too.
Them and MXM Collection coming in, along with Top Flight, along with, this is really cool shit. Looks like the tag division is back on the come up, and I'm excited to see that.
They got to get those belts off of the Bucks, man. Put them on the Top Flight. Seriously, it's got to happen.
I would like to see the Bucks honestly have a few successful defenses more before they drop the belts, because the last time they had the belts, they didn't successfully defend them once, I don't think.
That's
true. I don't want to have too many reigns like that. You know, like I still think the Bucks' first title reign was the best tag title reign of all, but you can't give them like meaningless title reigns. They need to mean something. I was glad they won at All In at the very least. Let's hope they get another few great matches in before they drop these titles. But the Grizzled Young Vets, MXM Collection, Top Flight, there's a lot of good teams. Private Party, a lot of good teams still.
Yeah.
So Dynamite was also a super good show.
It was.
You wouldn't have blamed them almost if they didn't kind of pump the brakes a little bit after a killer pay-per-view. But All Out last year was too quick of a turn, I thought. Where
it was like the week after, right?
Because it was the next weekend after. Yeah. It being 2 weeks out was actually pretty cool, if you ask me, because they started building that pay-per-view. So it was wall-to-wall angles, a lot of talking. There was only, I think, 3 matches, maybe 4. Yeah, there wasn't as many matches as there usually is.
Aren't that many.
No. But it starts off, Joshi, you and I had been talking earlier in the day, where the hell is Jon Moxley? Right?
I told you he was coming back.
Like, we thought things were probably cool, but it had been long enough to where we weren't entirely sure. Dynamite is supposed to kick off, air quotes, supposed to, with the match between Hangman and Ishii. Instead, some familiar music that isn't familiar because of AEW kicks off. And it kind of happens to be the music of one Jon Moxley, but it's his New Japan music, the Death Rider music, that grungy, sleazy blues shit that I prefer infinitely to Wild Thing, by the way. And Moxley saunters down to ringside. He's got different facial hair. He's got some weird cross or a dagger or a sword or something tattooed on his inner forearm. He's wearing green pants. This is not the Jon Moxley I know.
No, totally different look.
And Tony Schiavone, kind of speed waddles down to the ring and gets to the ring. And he's like, "You doing okay, bud? You doing all right?" And John kind of talks in riddles for a minute. He says, "I haven't been doing a lot of talking, but I've been doing a lot of thinking." And he basically, in essence, comes out to his New Japan music and says to Tony Schiavone, "This isn't your company anymore." Now, clearly, it's not Tony Schiavone's company, but Tony Schiavone represents a lot. Is he talking about the Elite? Is he talking about Tony Khan? What is he talking about? It had a very Scott Hall Outsiders through the crowd vibe. Joshi, your thoughts?
I'll give you my theory. I think it's "Here comes money."
God damn it.
Comes money, 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 money. So I think that this is probably leading to the Shane McMahon takeover. And I think there's a reason why the new deal hasn't been announced. Like, what I think is going to happen, and we've discussed this privately before, I think what's going to happen is that they're going to announce the new deal, and they're going to do a little thing where, similarly to when Shane McMahon, it was his name on the contract, he's the one that bought WCW. It's going to be like, yes, AEW has a new deal with Warner Brothers, but the name on the contract is Shane McMahon. I think it might be something like that, or some sort of an invasion angle, because Moxley saying this isn't your company anymore, I mean, something's up, right? I mean, what the hell's going on? And plus, he said he wants to talk to Darby Allin. Does he want to wrestle? Out Darby Allin. Yeah. Does he want to wrestle him? Does he want to recruit him? It doesn't seem like he's going to be part of the BCC anymore. I mean,
I think he seemed very un-BCC like.
He did, yeah.
I don't think he wants to wrestle Darby. And if he does, maybe it's because he wants to wrestle him and then recruit him. I think Mox and Darby might wrestle it all out. But I think Darby is part of Mox's plan. And I could see we'll just flash forward before the main event later on in the night. They show a clip of Moxley just walking around backstage. And he like quotes some like scripture shit. He says something like, no, something before swine, no.
Yeah, something like that.
I can't remember what exactly it was. And they said, well, maybe just a little bit. And Moxley doesn't touch anybody. And this female enters from behind. You can tell it's somebody familiar. And starts beating the crap out of all these security dudes behind. And then you realize it's Marina Shafir, who in my living room was like, holy shit, yes.
Me too.
Yes. Marina's finally going to be treated as a legit star. Yes.
First off, she has gotten a lot better in the ring.
She really has.
I mean, she is really good. Secondly, Mox has been wanting to work with her for a really long time. He's trained her. I'm just really happy for Mox. Like, how great is that? Hey, okay, you can work with Marina now, you know, like, so freaking awesome.
It's super cool. And I'm really, really excited to see where this is going. I mean, who's to say where it's going? But it looks exciting. I hadn't considered that they might be kayfabing the TV deal, and that Shane could be somehow involved in that. But you're right.
You never know.
That is a really interesting possibility.
And we're gonna dance together.
Yeah. Yes, we are. Here come money.
Dollar. Okay, sorry. To stop with the shit.
Dollar. There's a great match right after this first Moxley segment with Hangman and Ishii. These dudes beat the fucking shit out of each other.
It was good, yeah.
It was one of the best Dynamite matches of the year. It was low-key one of the best Dynamite matches of the year. Just, I think, because the Moxley thing had everybody so mesmerized. But this was an incredible match.
Oh, yeah.
Ishii tries to do the, what's that move called? Where Hangman dumps people on their head behind the...
damn it.
Ishii tries to do it to Hangman and nearly murders him. For real. Ishii fell on his ass instead of his knees. And I thought we were about to have an Owen Hart Stone Cold moment with Hangman. That was pretty scary. But Hangman appeared to be okay. They continue the match. They are beating the shit out of each other. Hangman wins with a Deadeye. It's the Deadeye. That is what it is. It's the Deadeye.
The Deadeye, yeah.
And then what's the name of the clothesline? Buckshot.
Lariat Buckshot, yeah. The Buckshot Lariat. The Buckshot Lariat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ishii tried to do the Deadeye and fell on his ass instead of his knees. Also, Ishii is too short to do that move to Hangman. Hangman's just too tall. He probably would have landed bad even if he had landed on his knees. But Ishii landed on his ass. Hangman lands kind of sideways on his shoulder. My God, that could have been so bad. But Hangman appeared to be okay. Beats Ishii. Swerve's music hits. We didn't mention that in the world title match at All In, Hangman busts through the audience, throws some security guys, looks totally like he hasn't showered for 3 days, and just distracts Swerve. And you could definitely say it cost Swerve the match.
Yeah.
Because the match is over pretty quickly after this.
I was thinking about that, but I forgot to mention it. Yes, Hangman Page definitely has something to do with
the finish.
Swerve's loss, okay? Yes.
What I will say is I love that he didn't touch Swerve.
Yeah,
didn't touch him. Swerve could have ignored him and just beaten Danielson, but he didn't. He let himself get distracted. It's still on Swerve at the end of the day. And that's
true.
I did not. A lot of people said Hangman was going to interfere and cost Swerve the match. This was the way to do it. This was the way to do it.
It was the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And, like at the end of the day, Swerve, Hangman, it's a love story. No, it's really not.
Dude, these guys are totally going to fuck. You know what they are. I mean, so Swerve comes down to the ring and he looks all business. He looks pissed. And proceeds to cut what might have been the best promo I've ever heard Swerve cut. Because he just fucking tears into Hangman. He's like, you're obsessed with me. I won the world championship and you're just lighting your career on fire. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, it's true. Hangman keeps losing, right?
He keeps losing because he's unhinged. And you can tell these dudes respect each other on some level. And then Hangman steals the mic and he's like, you only beat me the first time because of Nana. And then the second time, you only beat me because of Nana and Brian Cage. And then the third time, you had 30 minutes and you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You're not as good as me. And you see what the real crux of the issue is. Sure, Swerve broke into his house and menacingly spoke to his child. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
But the real issue is that you never beat Hangman on your own. And they even allude to the fact that Hangman tapped out to keep Swerve from winning the title.
Yeah.
To Samoa Joe, which they didn't make a big enough deal about at the time.
You know what? That's a really good point. Yeah, it's true. And iBlade, did you realize what else Swerve had said? When Hangman's wife was pregnant with baby 2, he showed up at the house again.
Yes.
How the hell do you trust this guy, man?
Well, and they also told you why Hangman had been gone so long.
Yeah.
Was that he was suspended because his wife was having another child.
Yeah, exactly. Now we know the real deal. Yeah.
Now we know the real deal. And so Swerve is like, all right, motherfucker, you want no interference. You want to keep everybody else but keep us in? Steel cage match. Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page. Next weekend. Not this weekend, next weekend.
Woo!
At All Out. Unbelievable. You know these guys are going to rip it up. But I think Swerve could beat Hangman again in this match. But he beats him on his own. And it changes the game. And it leads to, somewhere down the road, an uneasy alliance. I think Swerve is winning this belt back from Danielson. And I think Hangman is going to beat Swerve for it down the road.
That all makes sense to me.
Poetic justice.
Yeah.
Poetic justice. And Hangman finds himself through the whole thing. My God,
so good.
It's so good.
Real quick. Swerve just keeps getting better and better on the mic.
Unbelievable.
It's just insane. Man.
He is the guy.
He is the guy.
Swerve and Hangman are the main characters in AEW.
I agree.
Like, for a long time it was Hangman, and now it's Swerve and Hangman. This is the best rivalry in the history of AEW. I now believe that. I think it's actually, the story is just as good as Kenny and Hangman. And
that's fair.
And Mariah and Tony. They're all equal, in my opinion, at this point. But I think there's more of a rivalry between Swerve and Hangman than there was between Kenny and Hangman. This Hangman was trying to prove he was on Kenny's level. With Swerve, he thought he was above Swerve's level and got humbled big time and has lost his mind because of it. Daniel Garcia. MJF came out and cut a scathing promo. He's got KT tape
MJF.
all over his neck. Now, I did think that he was going to have to be in a full body cast after this, and it was going to be hilarious. But he has to wrestle at the next pay-per-view in like 10 days. So, like, he can't be in a body cast, right? But he comes out, he cuts a scathing promo, he renounces his U.S. citizenship.
That was so funny.
That was amazing. And then he calls a shot. He says, right when you're about to win that next title, Ospreay, I'm going to appear out of nowhere and cost you. He's kind of doing the Hangman thing that Hangman's trying to do to Swerve with Ospreay. So don't be surprised if that comes into effect later. MJF rarely predicts something that doesn't happen.
Don't forget about this.
Don't forget about it. But then he starts melting down on Daniel Garcia, and who should attack him from behind and beat the living piss out of him? Daniel Garcia. Then he wants to pile drive MJF. Then he's like, no. He tombstoned me from the second turnbuckle. Danny wants to fucking pile drive his ass from the second turnbuckle. You're just imagining all kinds of terrible things happening to MJF here. The security comes out. They separate him. Danny Garcia cuts an incredible promo on MJF. The best of his career by far.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
He says, ruining your life is my mission. It's my fetish. And he throws the mic from the middle of the ring to halfway down the ramp and hits MJF. Joshi, we cannot challenge this man to a game of darts, okay?
No, we can't. Like, he's too precise.
Yeah, we're both going to lose.
We're both going to lose.
So there is no hypothetical future darts match with us and Daniel. He can referee, but that's it.
That's about the thing too is that that I found really funny. So the security guards, they came out. They were, really quickly to help out MJF. Where the hell were you guys when MJF did the same thing to, like, Daniel Garcia?
Right.
Like, what the hell, man?
Pro wrestling logic,
No, I just found it funny because now they're like, no, this can't happen again. But seriously, like, Danny is so incredible, man. Like, out of all the really young guys, and when I say young guys, I'm not talking about the four that we consider the four pillars. I'm talking about, like, the pillars after the original four. Danny stands out so much, and he has just progressed a lot. And I mean, in the ring, on the mic, my dad's a huge Daniel Garcia fan. He finds him incredible,
I've been big on the guy since I first saw him. Him and Yuta had, like, a 90-minute match in, like, West Virginia on the Indies just before they both went to AEW.
Oh, I mean, nice.
I think it was like 90 minutes. And I saw clips of it, and they were really, really good. And then they both showed up in AEW. And I loved Red Death. I love that name. I love that seems to be what he's going back to, is being Red Death again. I love that whole idea. But I hope Danny gets a big win at All Out.
Me too.
It's time. It is time. Danny, I think, is resigning if he hasn't already. But this is his moment, and he should make the most of it, man.
Agreed.
Really great shit. Jamie Hayter makes her return.
Jamie!
Murders Harley Cameron. She looks great.
She does.
Harley was a great first opponent for her because she can kill her, but Harley doesn't lose anything by dying. Soraya looks terrified of Jamie Hayter. Kind of all there is to say about it.
Yeah. We missed you, Jamie. We're happy you're back.
Does it feel good to have the hate back in AEW?
She's my girl. I'm
so proud to be a hater.
Me too.
So proud. Mercedes is hosting a celebration of her big win backstage. She's interrupted by Private Party, who have a very hilarious interaction with her until Isaiah Cassidy basically makes an overt pass at her by making a really pretty graphic suggestion. Yeah. And from out of nowhere, you hear, hey, liquid courage, huh? And who is it but Kazuchika Okada? Dressed to the nines? Looking a little giddy to be there? And Mercedes says, Okada-san, how do you say bye, bitch, in Japanese? And Okada kind of fake whispers in her ear. And then she goes, ha, 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 sayonara, bitch. And then Okada proceeds to do the worst Rainmaker dance or the worst CEO dance I've ever seen in my life. But then says, ha, I can't believe it. Dream come true. And they cut out it. I'm losing my mind by how much I love Kazuchika Okada.
Me too. Okada's so precious.
There is nothing I enjoy quite as much as just like Mark Briscoe and Kazuchika Okada are my favorite, most joy-giving characters. Yes. And Okada's a fucking heel.
But it works anyway. I blame Daily. Real quick. And I hope this happens soon. It could even happen at All Out for all I care. I want Kazuchika Okada and Mercedes Moné in a mixed tag match.
Hell, I think it's going to happen.
It. Come on, please.
I think it's going to happen. And I want to see Mercedes eventually just be part of the Elite.
The Elite? Like why not? She fits in.
She totally fits. Oh, my God.
This was a great, backstage segment. Beautiful woman, beautiful man, beautiful Camille.
Thirst. See what was important to you. Yeah.
Thirst for everybody.
There was plenty of thirst to go around. Camille.
Thank everybody.
Woo! Good God. Good God. Speaking of which, Mariah May showed off her beautiful belt.
She looked
beautiful belt. Woo. Uh, woo. And I loved the way Shivani played it up too. He was so good. He was like introducing her and she kept touching him and he's like, where was I?
That was funny. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
And Mariah at one point undoes her robe for a second and she is literally wearing lingerie.
Sexy lady.
Good fucking God. Mariah May is a very attractive woman, in case anybody didn't know that already. And I'm pretty sure she knows it. Also, she makes sure to insult the women of Champaign, Illinois. So she knows how to get that vile woman.
She does.
Yeah. Yeah. She's going to be an expert heel.
Real quick, I Blade Daily. I don't know if you read this recently, but she had talked about like, the kissing between like her and Tony and Nina and whatnot. And she said that was completely her decision. Nobody forced her to do it. And I think it's great that she put it out there like, hey, you know what? Like, this is how I am with other women, and like I'm comfortable with myself and I'm confident. Good for you, Mariah. Put it out there, more, you know what I mean? Like, as a female, it can be really hard to go out there and just be like, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm going to show off my body. I'm going to like kiss other girls or whatever. It's just good for her. It's just nice to see these women in AEW. Like Mina is another perfect example. Mercedes
Tony
as well. Tony, super confident. And you know what? They're not shy to just say, hey, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. I love my body. I just really like that we're seeing more and more of that in AEW. So good for you, Mariah. Good for you. I enjoyed seeing you in lingerie too, girl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there were a lot of complaints. I think, ultimately, part of it.
Who the hell would complain?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there's somebody who would. But partly, the other thing I would say, too, is she mentioned, like, look, Tony and Mina and I were in the top-rated segment of Dynamite for weeks.
Which is true, yeah.
So we had no problem doing what we were doing. It just felt so different than, like, watching it during the Attitude Era when you're seeing these women who are clearly not totally comfortable doing what they were doing. Yeah. You could tell they weren't.
Yeah.
It felt gross. It felt like a violation.
Yeah.
And this did not. It just never did to me. I understood the concern you had and a lot of other people had that this would set a tone for some of the grosser male dudes out there. But I still felt like these women were exhibiting like agency, and there's a big difference. Ricochet made his debut on Dynamite and fought Kyle Fletcher. Very good match. Interesting because both have an extensive storyline possibility with Will Ospreay. Kyle Fletcher looks incredible.
Oh, he's so great.
Dude.
What a wrestler.
I don't think he can go back to being in a tag team.
I feel the same way at this point.
Like, what's Mark Davis going to do when he comes back? He's going to like have to be Kyle Fletcher's bodyguard or something. Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Or I know that Davis also has been injured extensively, like many times.
Yeah.
I wonder if the guy's going to call it quits. I don't know. It's been almost a year since he got injured.
It's true.
So I just don't know how you put Kyle Fletcher back in Aussie Open. Ospreay, after the match, Ricochet does win. Ospreay comes out to confront Ricochet. And just as I was sitting there, like, he's going to wrestle Pac in like 10 days. Pac hits him with a poison rana on the fucking stage. They execute it perfectly. Ospreay clearly was making eyes at Ricochet. And Pac says, "Don't you dare forget about the bastard."
You never forget about the bastard.
Which Ospreay clearly was forgetting about, right?
Yeah. What's the matter with you?
Pac is like, "Fuck you. Don't you dare.
Don't forget about the bastard." That's my, like, Jordy accent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, I thought I was the only guy who hit people with poison ranas in real fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. Like, I thought I was the only girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, sometimes, like, if I'm having, like, a disagreement with a coworker or something, I'll wait till they, like, go to get water from the water dispenser at the office I don't work at, and I'll hit him with a poison rana. You know, I mean, that's what I do, but I didn't know that Pac did that. I felt so much cooler once I realized that Pac did it too.
Yeah, me too.
So after that, we have the last moment on Dynamite. Some people really thought Bryan Danielson was going to retire in this segment. I saw the chatter about that. I'm like, no fucking way.
Why would he retire? He just won the belt. That makes no sense.
He won the belt at the biggest event of the year.
Why would he? Yeah.
In one of maybe the most legendary moment in the history of AEW.
Seriously.
Like, there's no way he was going to retire.
Hell no.
So he comes out. He does tease retiring. That belt looks amazing on him. Big Platinum looks just super good on Danielson.
Agreed.
He does say that he's going to, he said the word retire at one time in this promo, which he has avoided saying. And then he kind of clarified, like, I'm done as a full-time wrestler as soon as I lose this title. So I'm issuing an open challenge. Now, Bryan Danielson has a dead father. And Christian Cage has an anytime, anywhere title shot.
That's true.
So I kind of thought that might be the person who reared their head. Instead, it's even better. It's the scapegoat, Jack Perry, TNT champion. He says, my future's in front of me, but your future is behind you. And then Jack Perry attacks from behind, beats the shit out of Bryan Danielson. I am stoked that Jack Perry is going to main event All Out in Chicago. Just a year almost to the day that he had the whole thing happen with CM Punk. My God.
It's gratifying.
This is gratifying. It's cool to see. Jack Perry deserves it. He has been all killer, no filler all year long. This guy's promos are some of the best in the company.
They're very good.
You could never have convinced me of that before he left. But this guy got everything he needed while he was gone. He got all the anger that he needed. I think he's channeled his real anger into this character, and now he is kind of a mix of like Raven. So I'm stealing this from somebody on Threads. They said, oh, Raven and Brian Pillman.
And Brian Pillman.
And I totally see it. He's a maniac like Pillman, but he's like chill like Raven, you know, like he's so good. So that's how the show ends. And All Out this coming Saturday, next week is going to be a preview episode. But we got Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry for the AEW World Title. Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page in a steel cage. Daniel Garcia versus MJF. Will Ospreay versus Pac for the international title. Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander in a Chicago street fight. It sounds like it will not be for the CMLL title because Willow did mention that they wouldn't sanction it. And then it was strongly hinted that Roddy Strong will face Hook. There was another match that we didn't mention on the show because we've run way over time and it wasn't that significant. So, Joshi, anything else you want to tell the people?
These are exciting times. That's all I'm looking forward to. All Out. I won't be able to watch it live because I have to go out of town for a wedding, but I'll be sure to watch it next Sunday. So,
yeah,
you know, I'm stoked.
Yeah, I have no life at all and nobody who cares, so I will definitely be watching it live. So join me on Threads. Make sure you follow Joshi and I on Instagram and on Threads at Gina6000 and iBlade Daily on Instagram and Threads. Make sure you follow Sit Down, Shut Up, Mark Out on TikTok, on Threads, on Instagram, and on YouTube. And like I said, we'll be back with a full-on preview of All Out next week. Next week, R.I.P. to the master and ruler of the world, Sid Vicious.
Rest in peace.
Until then, pro wrestling forever.
Woo!
here, Jack Parrot.